Welcome to Key Conversations, a Making It in the Music Business podcast. My goal for this podcast is to help you learn from these conversations with both experts and working musicians and serve as a guide to assist your career in the process. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Englehart. Let's get going. Jess Godwin. She is an artist that I have admired for many a year. We met at a conference a bajillion years ago, and I've been following her ever since. And she creates the most gorgeous songs, vocals, piano, but she also does these amazing DIY videos that look like magic creatures have come in and painted stars in her eyes. I don't even know how to describe it. We're going to get into it. But thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yay. So before we even get started, I just want to tell everyone that they can find you at jessgodwin.com, Godwin, Jess, but not in that order. And this will be all in the show notes. So tell me, just to get a picture of you, give me 3 highlights in your life that got you to your awesomeness where you are today.
Oh, highlights.
Yeah.
They might be lowlights.
Okay, cool. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm learning to talk less about the bad, because I think that so much of my 20s were pretty fraught being in the music industry as a woman. And I know you know how it is. But I went through a really, really strange period of time where I had a lot of people telling me I needed to focus on my brand. And because I'm a people pleaser, I went from being a girl next door to being a misfit with pigtails. I think you met me during my pigtail phase.
Loved it.
To being a tomboy, to wearing menswear, to getting really sexy. And it really was really damaging, very damaging, because I got to a point where I didn't know what I was looking at when I looked at myself in the mirror anymore. And I stopped focusing on creating. Mm-hmm. And I'd always written just because I have this need to break open the stuff inside me and share it with other people to find a common thread between me and others. And I think that obviously when I started focusing on what I was putting in my body and what kind of character I was being, I lost that. And I hit a really, really dark period where I every time I sang, I cried. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, I just started creating, and I never really considered myself an artist, but I started painting, and then I started feeling out what it would be like to produce for myself and record myself, because I had always really deferred to men. I'd always been like, what do you think I should do, boy? Mm-hmm. And it was really exciting. And I was like, okay, well, if I can do this, what happens if I try to make it visual? So I started I'd put a camera up and do these one-take videos. And it was less about wanting to make something to share and more about me trying to crack some code and me trying to figure out how to make something that I liked that nobody else liked. But yeah, Home Depot, Joanne Fabrics, Target, I messed around with fabrics and light bulbs and flowers and throwing paint around, and those videos, I will always love those videos. And I think there's a period of time where I was really consistently doing these DIY videos because I feel like they signify me learning to get better and teaching myself that I can do these things myself. And out of that, I became a DIY artist, just like you.
Yep. Amazing.
But yeah, I think it was just and I'm so grateful that that all happened. I'm so happy that I had a horrible experience in my 20s and early 30s to get me to that point, because I don't think that I ever would have been pushed to the edge and not feel like I had to do something. I feel like I really needed to hurt a lot to realize that I owed it to myself to make my own creative decisions. And now I love it because I get to go and talk to kids about it. And
Tell me that. I've been seeing you're up because I know you are also a vocal teacher, right? You do amazing work with your students, and teaching has been something that was always consistent for me too. I teach piano lessons and a little bit of very beginner voice, and I only recently, like literally in the past month, started weaning out of teaching for the first time in like 15 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
so it's always really inspiring to see another artist like also teaching and like really owning. I think some people like are like, no, I'm a full-time artist, but I also teach. And I'm like, no, like teaching music is like 100% part of my full-time music career. Like, and it took me a while to really get on board with that also, but I love seeing how you've really combined your performance with what you teach, and you've been doing a tour. So I want to hear about that because I think it sounds like it's making a really big impact.
I love it. I think that for me, every time I would teach voice lessons or teach songwriting lessons, I just love talking to the kids more than anything. Like, it's sort of like therapy, but not, because I'm not a licensed professional, but like a lot of it was just like making somebody feel better about themselves. And I could care less about like making stars. And, I kind of dabbled in going into schools and talking about that whole experience, but I didn't really have, I guess, a bottom line or a punchline. But
yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, until 2 years ago, I wrote this song, Shame. And I did a lot of research on shame, thanks to researcher Brene Brown, who did an incredible amount of research on shame and vulnerability. And learned like that was something that I'd been carrying my whole life. And most of us do. Actually, we all do. It's human to experience empathy. It's human to experience shame, unless we're psychopaths or sociopaths, but most of us aren't. And I created this school program where I would go in and tell my story, because I think that, talking about how like I need to like crack this open and share it. I think that like whatever I do, that always kind of has to be a thread for me, just as an artist. Like I don't know. I just feel like I have to share these things with people, even if it's too much. So I would tell my story, and then I guide the kids through free writes and group discussions about shame and about like the things we're afraid to talk about, like being jealous of other girls and having crushes on people that don't like us back, like things that we all feel, but we don't always talk about. And then at the end of the class, we all write a song. So we started the Shameless workshop, which was like so wonderful. And I loved it so much. And it sort of evolved into this school performance that I just finished the Ohio tour. It was through Muse Machine. They have an incredible outreach program for students in the Dayton, Ohio area. And I performed like 38 schools, like 500 kids at a time. It was so much. And I was so like nervous because it was scary enough, like going and talking to 38th graders about like being insecure about how small my boobs are. Like, because I think it's important to like just talk about bodies, but it was like really nerve wracking to be like, oh my God, I'm going to talk about like when the labels made me sexy, and talk about boobs and talk about feeling depressed and talk about body dysmorphia, like in front of like 500 kids, most of which are not artists. And I was so intimidated, and it ended up being amazing. And I love it. And not everyone is receptive, and you're going to like, there's going to be some assholes in the group, but like, there's always a point in every single show where I would play my song Shame, and I get to turn it out and be like, this is my shame, not yours. And like, I don't need to make you comfortable with my shame. And like every single time there was just like silence. It's like, oh yeah, I got him. Because like, yeah. So it's really exciting to be able to like, to really be educational and talk about, oh God, what's the word? Man, I lost the word, but talk about feelings with kids.
Yep.
And not have it just be like bullying buzzwords, because I think that everyone's like, don't bully. And then it became like a hip thing to do. And then everyone's like, don't bully. And I think that it's so much more than that. I think that every student, every person gets, should be able to examine what's going on inside of them and heal that, because only then are they going to be able to like figure out why they're hurting other people and maybe change that. I just think that like when we start labeling other people's bullies, it just makes it worse. So
totally.
Yeah. Anyways.
I love that. And I think it's so important I think one of the things that's missing is language around certain feelings, especially, I think, boys with anger. I think that's a huge thing. I have lots of opinions about being able to say it's okay to feel this, and then what do we do with it, and how can we be responsible for that feeling, instead of being like, you shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't be sad, you shouldn't, stop crying, or all that stuff. So for you to get up there and say, I feel these things, I had these things happen, this is how I feel. You're sort of showing them this is what it looks like when you're expressing, and you're creating that space for them to step into. And I think you're giving them language where there's not normally language. And I think there's a shift going on right now that's taking away some of the stigma around even mental health and going to therapy. Like, that word is not such a ooh. I think we have a long way to go, but I think the work that you're doing, and anytime anyone gets up and shares anything vulnerable and is sort of like being brave while also just being very intimate, in such a special thing. Especially, I was going to see what age you were working in. Was it high schoolers or earlier? And I think it's so great that age is, or was it just eighth graders, or did it depend?
Middle school and high school was Ohio. I actually went to a Catholic school and did K through 8. And I definitely I modified everything.
Yeah.
But made it, mainly about don't change yourself for other people, and be kind, because words stick. Even if you're 35, you're going to think about something that some asshole said to you when you were 7, stuff like that really gets in your head.
Yeah.
But it's, it's really exciting. I feel hopeful in a time where it's hard to find hope because of everything that's going on in the world. And I really do think that these kids are going to be the ones that save us. And I know that that's what people said about our generation, but I think that we just have to keep focusing on chipping away and making the next one better and the next one better, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So I know you've been signed to labels, and right now in the current moment, you're 100% DIY?
Yeah, I actually was never signed. It was all developmental deals, and then they'd throw these bullshit contracts in front of me, and I'd be like, no. But yeah, I got, it was a lot of major label stuff that, I'm really was thinking the other day how happy I am to be free of that. And not even that it's more free of me
needing them.
Yeah. I think I just kept holding on to this hope that even though I was I don't need it, there was always that, because it feels good to be validated and feels good to be liked. And when you have an A&R exec be you're going to be middle America sweetheart, it's hard not to let that kind of stuff stick too. And I think that I think I'm free, and I think that I'm moving into this space where I don't feel like I'm racing time. I think as women we feel we're well, I'm getting older, and it's fuck that. Sorry, man, my kids are all gonna see this, but really art is art. Art is art, and we're gonna just keep getting better. So why rush art? I do have a co-pub with a label that has done nothing for me. So
great. Okay. Yeah.
Right. I owe them. They keep sending me invoices being you owe us this much money. I'm great. I know. Bye.
Yeah. Great. We're just gonna throw some birds that way. Great. Yeah. So what is going on with your next music project? I don't know if it's a record or not, and I wanted to hear more about what's going on with the letters.
Oh, Dear Finch.
Dear Finch, yes.
Why Dear Finch? So I put an all call out and had people write in these anonymous letters addressed to Finch. I did a lot of research on birds. I love birds. I just love animals in general, but I think there's something really beautiful, even beyond the fact that there's, hundreds of types of finches, and they're all different sizes and all colorful, and some are really good at singing and some really can't sing, but they're all finches and they're all connected. I think that's, a nice little metaphor for our world. But there's something really beautiful that I read, not beautiful, but sad, that finches need the presence of other finches to stay healthy physically and emotionally. And if you leave a finch in a cage by itself, it will get sick. and it's feathers will change color. And I think that I tend to isolate myself a lot. I don't know. I've just always been an introvert, and I've always been a little bit of a loner. Luckily I have a partner who like is such an extrovert who like doesn't let me. He's like, we're going out with people today. And I like people. I just forget to reach out to them because people are busy and I'm busy. And I also like to make videos in my bedroom, then I'm like, wow, that's in 3 days and I'm still in my bedroom and I haven't washed my hair. I did wash my hair for this interview.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I will not tell you whether or not I did, but that's fine.
I think that like for me, I had people send these letters in, and what was so beautiful about these anonymous letters is they ranged all the way from people, talking about being insecure about their bodies to, saying that they wish they could have told this person they loved them before they left, and to somebody saying he really wants to cheat on his wife. What should I do? It was so fascinating, but like absorbing, I felt like I absorbed the pain and I absorbed all the gratitude because there was so much gratitude, and it really helped me to feel like I wasn't alone. And I think that like, as you're talking about, like there's power in vulnerability, power in being brave. I think that like something like that I think it's worth sharing, because every time we can share somebody opening themselves up, it like reminds us that like, oh, I'm a human, you're a human, we're humans. Be human, not a robot. So I wrote 5 songs. Actually, I wrote more songs, but not all of them made the cut because it turned out to be much harder to put this whole music project together than I thought it was going to be. But 5 songs. And then I had written a song for my boyfriend's brother and his fiance, now wife. I interviewed his brother, and we added Amazed as like a bonus track at the end. But the 5 songs were all inspired by the letters, but also just kind of, it was that period of time where I was like absorbing like what other people felt about things and what I felt about things. So it's just kind of like a presentation of original songs and anonymous letters. And I actually have a video coming out maybe this week. I keep putting it off. I'm like, it's Halloween, next week's elections. Like, I don't know when to release it, but it's all 17 minutes of it.
Oh, wow.
Into a house, and like with these amazing singers that they're the backup singers and sometimes feature singers. And we went to my student's house and we like did 5 music videos, and it was really intense. And like, I got sick the next day because it was so much, but, and then I spent like all the past couple months editing it myself. And I don't know, I think it's just like it's a sweet little, I think honestly, it's a sweet gift to the people who like have been following Dear Finch and have been so kind to be like, hey, like here's a visual version of it. So.
Oh, I cannot wait for that. That sounds so, and that will be on your website, right? JessGodwin.com.
I should put it on my website. I always forget to update my website. Yes, I should. And it'll be on my YouTube, and I'll talk about it on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook too.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. Instagram, you're following her. It's Jessie Godwin, JESSI GODWIN on Instagram. And that is where you want to go hang out with this girl, because it's cool stuff there. You're an empath, aren't you?
Oh my God, can you tell? Yeah. I mean, I feel things so hard and so deep. I think, this week has been hard. This with everything that's gone on. Yeah. Everything. I think that like what happens is I find myself just like scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then it's like been hours, and
Yeah. A year and a half ago, a friend's wife who I had never met before, we were out at a party, and like we talked for maybe 20 minutes. She's like, so are you an empath? And I was like, God bless you. Like, what's that word? Like I literally like had never heard of that word before. Like I know the word empathy and empathetic, but like I never heard the word like as a noun. And then like a week later, another friend of mine was like explaining something I was upset about with my husband. Who knows? That's very likely. And she was like, well, it's because you're an empath. And I was like, that is the second time I heard that word. And then I asked another friend who's very into like personal development and astrology and all sorts of different stuff. And I was like, am I an empath? And she's like, duh. And it was kind of like when Hagrid says, "You are a witch, Harry." It was kind of like, poof, everything was like explained. I started reading, I took the empath test and like saw where I was on the spectrum. It really made sense that like I absorb other people's energy. And I had always thought of myself as an extrovert. And what I recently learned is that it's not about how social or talkative you are, because I'm like very energetic, very talkative, and I like people. But I chose this is where I spend like 10 hours, 12 hours a day, every day in this little like attic-y time. And I am so happy here. And a friend of mine who also does a lot of like personal development training was like, well, introverts are people who, extroverts are people who get energy from other people. Introverts are people who need to get their own energy from themselves, and their energy is drained from other people. So I can be great. And then I hit my threshold and I'm like, oh, that's actually me being introvert. So I learned that recently too. And then the empath tends to be more of creative people. So I bet a lot of people listening, you are all musicians, are probably on somewhere on the scale of empaths. If you're taking the emotions of other people, of yourself, and being able to like express it and putting out. So I've been reading a lot about like how to release that stuff. There's a lot of, and I used to get a ton of anxiety, which was always like releasing like physically for me. And that is because it's like you're absorbing all this energy, and it makes for great songs and lyrics, especially when you're reading it. But the things I've been learning about being an empath is to take care of yourself, to like do a lot of like hand and foot massages, things released through our extremities, to not read the news.
It's so
like not like you, especially like in weeks like this, like I'll get like what's going on. So I won't sound like an ignorant person, but like it's very tempting for me to like dig into like some of the stories. And I just know that leads me to like a really unproductive place where I'm like out of the game for days.
Yeah,
so
like I'm like, wow, I haven't posted in over a week. Just like, it's because I just absorb. That's how cool is it though, that like you had your Hagrid moment. I had my Hagrid moment, I think it was 2 years ago. And I was in company, Stephen Sondheim's company, and we were in tech, and well, not Stephen Sondheim, it was a writer's theater, but yeah, Stephen Sondheim. But writer's theater was also an amazing theater. And my boyfriend was in the show at the time, and we were in the middle of tech, and I'm in the dressing room with all these girls, and they're all lovely, but like everyone's talking all the time. And then it was also like Gabe's birthday, and so we went out to like one person's house to meet up for drinks. And it was like literally like the last day of tech. And like for non-theater people, tech is like, you get to the point where you're in the theater for 12 straight hours, and then you go home and you come back for 12 straight hours, and it's just never ending. And then we went to a bar to meet up with his brother and his brother's now wife. And Pete, his brother, looked at me and he was like, "Jess, are you gonna cry? Look, you look like you're about to cry." And I was like, "No." And then I just lost it. I was like, and I was that girl in the bar, like sobbing. And it like, also like Gabe and I, it was still new in the relationship. And I was looking at his brother being like, "I just want you to like me." I'm like just crying. And then, actually Gabe, like, I ended up finally like going home. And Gabe and I talked the next day, and he's like, you're an introvert. Like you hit your threshold. And I was like, oh, that's why I was like, want to go home first. And, so now we like know is like, he's got his friend time. And then when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go home and just like, I don't know, like do laundry.
Yeah.
But it was so, I just didn't really, it took me till I was like 33 to figure out like, that's how I function. And I think it's great that also like there's also so much more language around that now too.
Yeah, absolutely. Another, back when I was like in my late 20s, I worked at a jingle house, and my boss said, when I was parting ways, I went to go tour with my band, and I was like, yeah, and I'll also do the freelance composing thing. He was like, just remember that you're a performer. And I was like, yeah, I know. He was like, no. Let me define performer for you. Performer, in his definition, which I, to this day, I'm like, yes, that's the definition of performance, is when you are giving someone else something of value in real time. He's like, so when you're working for me, you're performing. When you're teaching a piano lesson, you're performing. You can see that they're getting value from you real time. So he was like, composing for a film score, you're not getting the real-time interaction. You're creating something. So there's that creation. There's the value that I created something from nothing, but you're lacking the real time. He's like, so don't get lost in a dark studio. That's not who you are. You have to be responsible for the fact that you are a performer. And he like saw right through me when he said this. And I thought that was also sort of in this empath, introvert, now performer. There's like different sort of ways to define yourself. And I think, being able to like add words and definitions has just been allowed me to be responsible for that. And when I really was like, yeah, that's true, I can be responsible for that. So yeah, I do most of my work here, whether I'm writing a book, creating a course for musicians, or writing my next record, which I'm doing, or writing a musical, which I'm doing. Like it all happens here. So I know that I can stay here forever, but then I'm going to like go spin off. So I need to like make sure I call a friend, make sure I get to New York City for a day, make sure like I can be responsible for, I know that I'm a performer and I need to get out, and maybe I'll like go do a straight play in the local community theater of one season. And like, I actually will do actual performance but it doesn't necessarily mean being on a stage and like, so I love that definition too. And it sort of gave me permission to like be an introvert, but also make sure there is like, this feels like performing, like every conversation is a partnership and anything that's not scripted. So, that really helped me. Like, it was a good compass sort of to help me decide, what to do next. I'm feeling a funk. And I can like look back. Have I talked to anyone today? And my husband's a mountain guide. So he goes away for 2 weeks at a time. We don't text. He's like, I have a partner in life. And when he's away, he's away. So it's like, so anyway, that was another word that I sort of thought might also resonate with you in how you operate.
No, I love that. I'm going to hold that. I love that of value. I think that's really important because sometimes, I don't know. I think that, I forget because sometimes I'm like, well, I'm on a stage doing this, but I think that like putting the value next to it makes it a little more sacred, which is cool.
Yeah. And that can look like a lot of things, but I think for us as musicians, it looks like connecting with someone or saying something that they haven't found words yet for. So that's why they're resonating with our song, or all of that is value.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's next other than this video that's coming out whenever you decide it's going to come out?
I'm taking some time to not rush into anything creative because I think that that's what I do. That I'm like, well, I have to do something because if I don't do something, then my life stops forever. And I know that's not true. So I'm letting myself just, but I'm talking to a college about potentially developing a theatrical piece, about Catholicism, which I'm really excited about. I have a lot to say. And and I actually I have a lot of love. Like I have a lot of love to say about it. And I also have like, just, conflicting views about it because I grew up just, being very Catholic, loving Jesus. And, I think that, what is it? It's called, there's a word. I've been watching, The Good Place. Have you seen The Good Place?
I watched a couple episodes. I actually was thinking I should pick that back up while my husband's away. He was not into it, but I liked it. It's cute.
It's cute, but it has a lot of like really interesting conversations about good and bad. But it's something dessert. It's
something dessert.
Moral dessert. And like it was so cool because I've been talking about this and then I watched an episode and they put the word to it. I was like, oh, but so much of what I did being Catholic and being good, I was being good because I thought I was going to get a reward. I was like cantering at Catholic churches twice a day for 10 years because I thought that some man was going to want to marry me. I thought I was going to get myself a Catholic husband. Or that if I was like a good Christian, then like good things would happen in my life. And that's just not what happens. And I think that I've, talked to a lot of Christians who, are acting big. They're like, well, I'm going to be nice to this LGBTQIA person because even though I don't agree with them, I'm going to get eternal life in heaven one day. And I just think that I think that we should be good to people just for the sake of being good. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just like, I have a lot of thoughts about wanting to unite two sides of a coin. And I also like want to approach it with a lot of love. So yeah, I've just been thinking about it a lot, and I'm excited because I have a lot to say about it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited. So that's kind of what's next, I think, which is going to be interesting because I think that so much of what my storytelling has been up to this point has been just me wrestling with what went down in the music industry. And now I'm like, well, that's not a part of my life anymore. What's next? Like, what do I want to say next? And I think that's one really strong thing. I really want to talk about like how like religion and faith can be a wonderful thing and how it can be not such a great thing. So reckon with that and see how we can like make everybody better, I think.
Yeah. And you're bringing in a musical way. Like,
yeah. That's next. I don't know. Hopefully I'll get some big paying gigs, but I'm trying to like breathe into the future and really different for myself, I guess.
Isn't it funny? We hit our mid-30s and that's when we're like, oh, what's the rush? Like we're older now. And I say I'm in my mid-30s. I'm actually 38. So, but that's mid-30s.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I was such a rush in my 20s to like get out all the things that I had to say and where did it get me? And it's like the second I was able to like take time and like look carefully and like do it well, I was like, what was that rush? And I think it's an industry thing, and I think it's a female thing, and I think it's a stupid thing.
It's a stupid thing. It's like, it's poison, and it's not, I keep wanting to say it's outdated. I mean, it is outdated, but it's still happening over and over and over again. I mean, really like so I'm trying to move you closer to the window so we can get some more light because the light is fading. The nail in the coffin with my A&R contact was like after 2 years of me frantically making like more DIY videos, because there was a period of time where I was making those one take videos and it was like therapeutic for me. And then Warner Brothers stepped in and was like, hey, so like, this is great. This works. We just need like one hit and then we'll use the hit to do it. You can do a DIY video. We'll make it look like it's DIY and like, we'll make it a viral video. And like, so for 2 years, I was frantically just trying to create these videos and trying to like reinvent my wheel. And he's like, your harmonies are the thing. And like, this song's a hit. This song's a hit. We just need 3 hits that are similar. And like, it just kept changing. And then he called me last Christmas and said, I have a new great idea. We're going to find a young girl, a cute young girl, and we're going to use all of your melodies and harmonies and creativity and DIY ideas, and we're going to develop her. And I was like, yeah, even like saying that, like my tummy went, ooh.
Like what?
And I was like, hey, I almost said his name. I can't say his name. I was like, when did I get like, what in the past 2 years, did I start looking older? Like what happened in the past 2 years to make you all of a sudden decide that like, this was the right thing? And like, also I love young women. I love encouraging young women and bringing them up. But like the idea of creating someone like in my image, like, even if it was for my financial gain, like it's just my nightmare. And also putting a woman through development, which is what I would never ever want to put anyone else through because it's bullshit. Yeah, it was just bad. So that was kind of like the beginning of the death. And I think that like, I really think that like going on the school tour and being able to talk to so many kids about it and also just like regain some confidence in myself as a performer. And I think I'm good. I really think I'm finally stopped having the nightmares about it. But yeah, I know you totally get it. It's just like, different for girls and women.
Yeah. Which is a perfect segue into at least the title of the song that we're going to hear now, Heroes and Villains. Tell me why you chose this song and what it means to you and anything interesting about it.
Oh gosh. I think, I don't know. This song gives me comfort. but I think that we're living in a time right now where we like to paint ourselves the heroes and make somebody else the other. And that person is all villain and I'm the hero and you're the villain. And, or on the flip side, sometimes I do this where I'm like, I'm a bad person. I'm a villain. Everyone else is good. Like I do that to myself. And I think that, we as humans are both always like, we're neither good nor bad. And I think that like acknowledging that, in ourselves and each other is maybe the first step towards healing.
Yeah.
But yeah. And it's so hard not to think about heroes and villains just in this political climate. It's just everywhere all the time. And, but yeah. And I just love the choir. I think the choir sounds really good on this one. So
the choir sounds amazing. The whole track builds. It's such a beautiful build. And sometimes builds in, pop songs feel so contrived, and it, like everything that added in and came in, I was like, yes. So the song, I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited that we got to talk. I feel like we could talk for like hours and hours about like just being human beings, but also creativity. Like we could have you back and just talk about your Instagram alone, which is awesome. So everyone go follow her, Jess Godwin. Yep. And thank you so much for this conversation. This is awesome. I feel like,
I'm feeling good. Like I want to like go for a run now or something.
Yes.
It was actually really just nice to be able to sit down and talk to you. And like, we should definitely keep in touch. You're really cool. And like, you're doing so many things that like, I would love to do. Like every time I see you like at a conference, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're speaking my gospel. Like I really are. You're speaking the DIY gospel. And I think it's so freaking cool that like you paved this road for yourself. So like, we should be friends. So.
Even the brightest of angels can fall. Even the bravest of giants can crawl.
Please don't forget to rate, like, and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and YouTube if you like this podcast. Musicians like you keep me inspired and motivated, and for doing that, I'm offering you a free 6-page guide to pitching. This guide will unlock the keys to priming your pitch, where you can get started getting a yes when you pitch anything to anyone. Grab it at inthekey.co/prime. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on Key Conversations. The theme song on this podcast was provided by yours truly. If you're interested to find out more about my composing and songwriting projects, go to inthekey.co/Cheryl. If you're a musician looking to get some real results for your music career, then head to inthekey.co/results, where I've created a bunch of different kinds of resources just for you. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their point-and-click editor. All of the features you can imagine for a possible website are built in. So, because you're a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special month free trial plus 15% off if you do decide to sign up. Just for you. Go to inthekey.co/make-a-site to get the offer.
Why are you leaving so soon? Why are you leaving the battle? You should be back in the saddle. Lay down your demons. You're not the only one. We're just heroes and villains. Heroes and villains. Heroes. 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 I'm not the best I've ever been. I cut my losses, but I still am short on wins. Could you forgive me for my sins? We're just heroes.